turn you over to one of my absolutely favorite speakers and people, because she's just always shows me many things that I did not know, or I was understanding different things about nutrition. And so I'm happy that Rachel is here with us to talk tonight about nutrition and our world. So with that, Guillermo, I'll have you unshare your screen, if you will, and I'll have Rachel get ready to share her screen, and then I'll turn it to Rachel. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everybody for being part of this new world order for Zoom at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you so much for introducing me, Brett. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Dillon. I am a clinical dietitian at Eisenhower Medical Center. And today we're going to be talking about setting the table for healthy eating. I'm going to be removing my video during the presentation, but please feel free if you come up with any questions during the presentation. We are going to be going over a lot, and it can get a bit confusing because we're going to be getting into numbers, words you may not have heard of. So if you do come up with a question, please feel free to type it in the text, and we will get to it at the end, break everything down. But for now, I'm going to remove my video, and we're just going to hop into it. Click the button. Okay.
Did we just lose Rachel?
Oh, no, I'm still here. So I'm trying to,
oh, sorry.
It's not letting me,
advance?
It's not letting me move my, oh, here we go. Is it down at the bottom? Aha, I found it.
There you go.
Wonderful. So again, welcome, and thank you for joining me today. Normally, if we were in a group setting in a room, I'd have everyone go around and introduce themselves, but because of our unique situation, feel free to say hello in the little text box and introduce yourself. All right, so our objective today for this presentation is twofold. First, we're going to learn how to read and use the nutrition facts label to make informed food choices that support a healthy diet. And second, we'll explore how you can take an active role in making healthier choices at home and while eating out. So I hope you leave here today with 3 key messages about good nutrition practices. The first being that small changes add up. Focusing on small, manageable shifts to healthier food and beverage choices can lead to healthy, lifelong changes. The second being that healthy cooking and eating starts with smart food shopping. Knowing how to read and use the nutrition facts label while shopping can help you make smart, healthy food purchasing decisions for you and your family. And finally, knowing your options when eating out. When you're eating out, making informed choices can help support your health goals. So really quick before we start, I want to define some key terms. And these are probably words that you've seen floating around everywhere, but maybe you've never gotten a chance to have it explained of what it is, or just kind of a recap or refresher. So first, what is a calorie? A calorie is a unit used to measure the energy content of foods and beverages. Our bodies need energy to function, grow, and thrive, and thus need calories. Second, what is a nutrient? A nutrient is a substance in food that our body uses to function and grow. We get nutrients from what we eat and drink. Fats, carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals, and water are all examples of nutrients. Fats, carbs, and proteins also supply calories to the foods and beverages that you eat and drink. Third, what is a percent daily value? Percent daily value tells you how much a nutrient in a serving of food contributes to the total daily diet. It also helps you determine if a serving of the food is high or low in the nutrients and to compare food products. You'll find both calories and percent daily value useful terms to know when using the label to compare food products. So first, we're going to turn our attention to the nutrition facts label, which I'm sure is something you all have seen before. Once you become familiar with it and know how to use it, the label can be extremely valuable for you and your family to make healthier food choices. So looking at this, I'm sure you might have a couple questions, right? You've all seen these on foods that we purchased. If maybe you've never taken a look at it, or you've seen it and you didn't know what it was, how to use it. So I'm going to quickly answer some brief questions that might have come to mind just by looking at this. The first being, what is nutrition facts label? And it is regulated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, and it's actually required on most food and beverage packages. It provides important information about the nutritional content of foods and beverages. Another spot you might be thinking is where the label usually found. You can generally find the label on food and beverage packaging and containers such as boxes, bags, bottles, and cans. And usually you'll find it on the back of any product that you're going for. Another question you might be thinking is, why is the label important? The nutrition facts label is important because it can help us make informed decisions about the foods and beverages we consume, decisions that promote good nutrition and good health. And a question I would ask you to maybe reflect on is, do you currently use the label, and why or why not? Did you maybe not use it because you weren't sure how to use it or didn't know what it meant? Is it something that you do actively use? Are there certain parts of the label that you look for when you make food purchases? So kind of a reflective question to think about. So what we have here is the original nutrition facts label, and it might look familiar to some of you. You actually might see a couple of these floating around still. As I mentioned, the nutrition facts label provides nutrition information about foods and beverages. For example, it shows the serving size, the number of servings per container, the calories per serving, the various nutrients contained in the product per serving, and the percent daily value of most nutrients per serving. Percent daily value helps you determine if a serving of food is high or low in a nutrient and to compare food products. But now, let's take a closer look at the new nutrition facts label. So a couple of years ago, the FDA made a statement and made it so that every food company and every product would have to switch to this new food label. Originally, I believe it was January of 2020, so a couple of months ago, was supposed to be the cutoff for all products to have this new label. They've been given a little bit of leeway, and now I believe it's later in the year is the new cutoff. But you'll find that I'd say about 80% of products now do have this new label. Okay. You might already be seeing the new label on food and beverage packages in local stores. So let's go over the differences that you'll see between the original and the new nutrition facts label. The first being that serving sizes have been updated to be a more realistic reflection of what people actually eat and drink. The number of calories is also in a larger, bolder font. Calories from fat has been removed, since research now shows that the type of fat a person consumes is more important than the amount. Added sugars in grams and as a percent daily value is now required on the label. Grams aren't required for single ingredient sugars like table sugar, maple syrup, or honey. The list of nutrients at the bottom has also been updated. Vitamin D and potassium are now required on the label because Americans don't always get the recommended amounts. Vitamins A and C are no longer required since deficiencies of these vitamins are rare today. The actual amount in milligrams or micrograms, in addition to the percent daily value, must also be listed for vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. The daily values for nutrients has been updated based on new scientific evidence. So the footnote at the bottom of the label has also been changed to better explain the meaning of the percent daily value.
O hay alguien pregunta algo. Ahí.
So let's go ahead and start at the top. The first line tells you the servings per container, which is the total number of servings in the entire food.
Are we getting somebody unmuted, Guillermo, or?
Yes, go ahead, Rachel. We were.
Yeah.
Somebody
we
was.
already.
We got it right. Okay. Rachel, you still there? Rachel?
Says she's muted.
There we go. It's hard to tell when you're muted
number.
when you're muted. No
Okay.
problem. All right, so let's start at the top. The first line tells you the servings per container, which is the total number of servings in the entire food package or container. It's common for one package of food to contain more than one serving. The second line is the serving size. The serving size is based on the amount of food people typically eat at one time and is not a recommendation of how much you should eat. The nutrition information listed on the nutrition facts label is based on the serving size listed on the label. And if there's a second column based on the amount per package, that column of nutrition information will be based on the entire package of the entire package. Serving size is shown as a common household measure that is appropriate to the food, such as cup, tablespoon, piece, a slice if it's a bread, or a jar. followed by the metric amount. When comparing calories and nutrients in different foods, always check the serving size to make an accurate comparison. The next line is calories per serving. Calories refer to the total number of calories or energy supplied from all sources. So remember again, fats, carbs, proteins, and alcohol in the serving of the food. To achieve or maintain a healthy weight, balance the number of calories you eat and drink with the number of calories your body uses. 2,000 calories a day is used as a general guide for nutrition advice, but your calorie needs may be higher or lower and vary depending on your age, sex, height, weight, and level of physical activity. And later we'll go over on how you can discover on how to calculate your personal calorie needs. Next, we have the percent daily value, which is also known as percent DV. And this shows us how much a nutrient in a serving of the food contributes to a total daily diet. You can use the percentage DV to determine if a serving of the food is high or low in an individual nutrient and to compare food products. But make sure the serving size is the same. As a general guide, 5% DV or less of a nutrient per serving is considered low, and 20% DV or more of a nutrient per serving is considered high. Please note some nutrients, such as protein and trans fats, on the nutrition facts label do not have a percentage DV. You want to use the number of grams as a guide. The label lists the different nutrients contained in the food product. Use this section of the label to help choose products that are lower in nutrients you want to get less of and higher in nutrients you want to get more of. Nutrients to get less of include saturated fats, trans fats, sodium, and added sugars. Most Americans exceed the recommended limits for these nutrients, and diets higher in these nutrients are associated with an increased risk of developing some health conditions, such as cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure. Compare and choose foods to get less than 100% of these nutrients each day. Note, trans fat does not have a percentage DV, like I just mentioned. So you want to look at the number of grams for comparison, and you want to keep the intake of trans fat as low as possible, ideally 0. Nutrients to get more of include dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. Many Americans do not get the recommended amount of these nutrients. So compare and choose foods to get 100% DV of these nutrients on most days. So a little quiz for you all. We're going to test your knowledge, and I'm not sure if it's best to use the text box or we might just at home maybe write your answers and we can compare. But looking at this label, what is the serving size of this food? If you're thinking 2/3 a cup, you are correct. And remember, you look at that by looking at that top label up there. How many calories are in one serving? So remember, we go down to the bottom and we've seen the big bold 230. That's the amount of calories in that 2/3 cup serving. How many servings are in the entire container? To find that, we would actually look right underneath nutrition facts that says 8 servings per container. So we know that in this one container, we have 8 2/3 cups. Now, a little bit of a trickier question, how many calories are in the entire container? Now, this isn't something that we would know necessarily by looking at this label. Some of the newer labels, like I was mentioning earlier, do have a separate column for the nutrition facts for the entire label, but not everybody's going to have that. So if you're looking to calculate that yourself, what you would do is you would take the calories that you have in your one serving, right, 230, and then you would multiply that by how many servings you have. So in this case, it's 8 servings. So 8 multiplied by 230, we're going to do the math, it's actually going to be 1,840 calories. Now another question is how much sodium is in the entire container. So again, we're going to do the same thing we did with calories, except we're going to go down to the sodium line, right? So here we see that it says 160 milligrams in one serving. So we're going to multiply that by 8 to see how much sodium is total in that package. And in this case, it's going to be 1,280 milligrams. Keep in mind, if you eat or drink 2 or more servings of the food or beverage that you have, you are going to get double or more of the calories and nutrients that are listed on the label. So if you're looking to count calories, if you're looking to figure out how many calories would be in your servings, keep in mind of how many servings you are looking to consume. All right, moving on to fat. The nutrition facts label shows the total amount of fat contained in the product and its percent daily value, as well as two types of fat, saturated and trans fat. Dietary fat is a necessary nutrient for the human diet. It provides energy, helps the body absorb important fat-soluble vitamins, is important for growth and development, and supports several key body processes. Saturated fat is found in a variety of foods, including animal fats such as butter or lard, meats and poultry, processed meats and poultry products such as bacon and hot dogs, dairy products, snack foods, sweets and spreads such as butter, stick margarine, cream cheese, and sour cream. Trans fat is found naturally in small amounts in some animal products such as meats and dairy. Trans fat formed artificially is found primarily in foods that contain partially hydrogenated oils, such as baked goods, coffee creamer, fried fast foods, ready-to-use frostings, refrigerated dough products, frozen pizza, snack foods, stick margarine, and vegetable shortening. It's important to note that as of 2018, partially hydrogenated oils in the U.S. food supply are not generally recognized as safe, which means that most uses of artificial trans fat will need to be eliminated by January 2020, which is a couple months ago. So ideally, you should not be seeing hydrogenated oils in products, but again, there has been some changes in the deadline. You still want to check your labels just to make sure that it does not contain any. There is evidence that diets higher in saturated fat and trans fat are associated with increased levels of total cholesterol and or low-density lipoprotein, which you might know as LDL or bad cholesterol. This in turn is associated with an increased risk of developing cardiovascular disease, the leading cause of death in both men and women in the United States. Replacing saturated fats with unsaturated fats, especially polyunsaturated fats, which I'll share an example of as we go on, is associated with reduced levels of total cholesterol and of low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, or LDL. The nutrition facts label shows the amount of saturated fat in grams and the percent daily value in the amount of trans fat in grams for a serving of the food. When you're shopping for food to cook at home or when eating out, compare and choose foods get less than 100% DV, or about 20 grams of saturated fat each day, and keep the intake of trans fat as low as possible, or as they say, aim for zero. Look for ways to replace saturated fat with monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats when possible. And I'll mention too that sometimes you'll find on nutrition labels, they will put the content of the mono or polyunsaturated fat if it is present. This is something that is voluntary. It's not required to be on the label. So it may not necessarily, you may have a food that has it, but it may not necessarily say it on the label, but keep in mind that if you have a product, say for example like olive oil, they will mention on there how much of those fats are in it. So something to look out for if you're looking to consume more of those. Food manufacturers may also voluntarily list the amount of grams per serving, and another way to look and see if the label does not have that, the ingredients you would want to look for would be avocados, fish, nuts, seeds, and vegetable oils such as canola, olive, and soybean oil. All right, moving on to added sugars, which is something that is new to the label. Added sugars include sugars that are either added during the processing of foods or are packaged as such. So for example, a bag of table sugar, sugars from syrups and honey, and sugars from concentrated fruit or vegetable juices. It also includes sugars that you may add to your diet, such as syrup on pancakes or sugar in your tea or coffee. Added sugars are included on the new nutritional facts label in the total carbohydrate section under total sugars. You can also look for added sugars on the ingredient list on food packages. Examples of things to look for would be brown sugar, corn syrup, dextrose, fruit juice concentrates, glucose, high fructose corn syrup, honey, lactose, maltose, malt syrup, maple syrup, molasses, and sucrose. We'll talk more about other things to look for on the ingredient list later. Now, coming to mind, you can think of certain foods or maybe main sources of added sugars in our typical American diet, baked goods, desserts, salad dressings, which is something a lot of people don't think of, and spreads and condiments like ketchup, for example. Ketchup has added sugar, sugar-sweetened beverages, even energy drinks, and then sweets such as candies. You might be wondering how much is too much or how much can I consume? When sugars are added to foods and beverages, it increases calories without contributing important nutrients. Diets high in calories from added sugars can make it difficult for people to meet their daily recommended levels of important nutrients while staying within calorie limits. The dietary guidelines for Americans recommend consuming less than 50 grams per day of added sugars based on a 2,000 calorie daily diet. This is equal to about 12 teaspoons of added sugars per day. And to convert grams to teaspoons, we would just divide the number of grams by 4. You can also check the percentage daily value on the nutrition facts label to see if a food is high or low in added sugars. And remember, 5% daily value or less per serving of added sugars is considered low, and if it's greater than 20%, then we would consider that high. So now taking a look at this label, knowing again that if you have 5 or less daily value, that's low, and 20% or greater is high, which nutrients would be considered low and which would be considered high. So if you take a look, first one that pops out to me is that saturated fat, right? That's a 5% daily value. So we would consider that to be low. This would be considered a low saturated fat food. Another one that pops up is the added sugar. That one is at 20%. So that one we would consider this to be a food high in added sugar. And then if you scroll down to the bottom for the vitamins and minerals, that calcium is at 20%, so we consider that to be a great source of calcium. And then the iron is 45%, so we consider that to be an excellent source of iron. Good nutrition can lead to better health for you and your family. Knowing how to make healthier food choices when shopping, cooking, and eating is the key to improving your nutrition. And of course, the nutrition facts label can help. So let's go ahead and talk about some practical ways to bring good nutrition into your daily life. Healthy eating starts with smart food shopping and cooking. You may think, for example, of some instances when your food shopping choices influence how you eat. So maybe, for example, do you usually cook and eat healthier meals at home when you have planned ahead and purchased items that you need from recipes at the store? As I was mentioning, healthy eating starts with smart food shopping and cooking. And here are some ideas of how we can be smart shoppers. Like I just said, we always check the nutrition facts label. You can consult the quick tips for reading the nutrition facts label wallet card, which I will have email and sent out to you after the presentation. Eat before you shop. Grocery shopping hungry can lead to impulse buying and unhealthy food choices. I usually try to eat a little snack or a protein bar before I grocery shop because I'm very guilty of this. Use fresh vegetables and fruits that are in season. They're easy to get, have more flavor, and are usually less expensive. And I've definitely noticed this with berries, for example. I love to eat berries year-round, but I find that especially right now, for example, is berry season until about the end of the summer, and the prices are definitely cheaper now than if I were buying berries in the winter. You can try canned or frozen fruits and vegetables. Canned and frozen items may be less expensive than fresh. For canned items, choose fruit canned in 100% fruit juice without added sugars, and vegetables with low sodium or no salt added on the label. Also, think outside the store. Farmers markets and farm stands can be great options for picking up fresh produce at a discount. Use the label to compare foods. When comparing products for calories and nutrients, be sure to check the serving size and be aware of any differences. The serving size is based on the amount of food typically eaten at one time and isn't necessarily a recommendation of how much to eat. Also, to achieve or maintain a healthy body weight, balance the number of calories you eat and drink with the number of calories your body uses. And here's a link for a calculator to figure out how many calories your body needs. There are many on the internet, so if this one doesn't work for you, you can just search calorie calculator and you'll have a whole bunch come up. Each one that will ask for different things, so you might find the one that's best for you based on your goals and your current knowledge. Look at the percent daily value and remember that the 5% daily value or less per serving of a nutrient is low and that 20% or greater is high. Choose products lower in nutrients you want to get less of and higher in nutrients you want to get more of. And next I want to talk about what those might be. So what we want to get less of. Most Americans exceed the recommended limits for saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and added sugars. And diets higher in these nutrients are associated with an increased risk of developing some health conditions, such as cardiovascular disease and high blood pressure. Compare and choose foods get less than 100% of these daily values for all the nutrients. And note again, trans fat does not have a percentage daily value, so we want that to be 0. The nutrients you want to get more of. Many Americans do not get the recommended amounts of dietary fiber, vitamin D, calcium, iron, and potassium. So compare and choose foods to get 100% daily value of these nutrients on most days. So here are some few ways you can make healthy choices at the grocery store. For example, in the bread aisle, look for breads that are higher in dietary fiber. Make half your grains whole grains. When looking for whole grains, check the ingredient list and choose products that name a whole grain ingredient first on the list. Look for whole wheat, brown rice, bulgur, buckwheat, oatmeal, whole grain cornmeal, whole oats, and whole rye. And this can also apply to bread as well. When you're looking at bread, you can look at the first ingredients. A lot of breads out there that are even high in fiber still use white flour as the first ingredient. So try to look for one that uses whole wheat flour as the first ingredient. Try low or non-fat dairy products like skim milk, non-fat yogurt, and reduced fat cheese that contain less saturated fat and sodium than full fat products and can be healthier choices. Compare snacks and choose versions that are lower in saturated fat, sodium, and added sugars. Fruits and vegetables are always good snack options. And speaking of fruits and vegetables, eat more fruits and vegetables in fresh, frozen, or canned forms. When buying frozen or canned foods, keep in mind that you don't want any added sauces, and you want labels with low or no sodium and unsweetened or no sugar added. One of the easiest culprits is when buying canned fruit. You don't want to look for fruit pie filling, or say for example you're looking for apples or cherries. You don't want the cherry filling or the apple filling because those usually have additional sugar and additional syrups. Tastes really good when it goes in your pie. Instead of buying sugar-sweetened beverages, bottle your own water to carry with you. Easy on your wallet and has 0 calories. And keeping this advice in mind, and as space permits, if you see an item on sale, stock up and freeze or store extras until you need them. Something I like to do is, because I like to eat bread, and I'm the only one that consumes it, living by myself, I actually just freeze my bread. And I normally toast bread, so that's kind of a trick that I do to buy fresh bread, but have it not necessarily go bad. In addition to the nutrition facts label, the ingredient list is also a helpful tool. The ingredient list shows each ingredient in a food by its common or usual name. Ingredients are listed in descending order by weight, so the ingredient with the greatest contribution to the product is listed first, and the ingredient contributing the least by weight is listed last. Check the ingredient list on foods before you buy them. Use the list to find out whether a food or beverage contains ingredients that are sources of nutrients you want to get more of, such as whole grains, and sources of nutrients you want to get less of, such as added sugars and the partially hydrogenated oils. So really quick, just want to take a minute to have everyone reflect, and based on what you've learned so far, if you can think of 3 changes that you want to make to choose healthier foods while grocery shopping. So just take a minute if you want to write them down or talk about them if you're doing this presentation with a loved one or a family member. A minute. Awesome. If you'd like to share what you came up with in the chat, you can go ahead and type it over there, and we can discuss it or share at the end. I'm going to go ahead and move on. So it's also important to make healthy food choices at home. So we're going to go over some practical tips together. Focus on making healthy food and beverage choices from all 5 food groups, including vegetables, fruits, grains, especially the whole grains, protein foods, and dairy to get the nutrients that you need. Focus on variety, amount, and nutrition because all food and beverage choices matter. Aim to make half your plate fruits and vegetables. Focus on whole fruits and try to vary your veggies. That's what I mean by eating the rainbow. When eating protein foods, choose seafood and lean proteins like skinless chicken, at least 92% lean, 8% fat ground beef, and lean cuts of meat. Don't forget about other sources of protein like beans and peas, eggs, soy products, nuts, and seeds. Try whole grains such as oatmeal, popcorn, and brown rice as snacks or side dishes, and switch from refined to whole grain versions of commonly eaten foods, such as breads, cereals, and pastas. Whole grains are important sources of nutrients such as zinc, magnesium, B vitamins, and fiber. Try fat-free, skim, or low-fat, about 1% dairy products such as milk, cheese, and yogurt. If you're lactose intolerant, you can try yogurt, lactose-free milk, or soy beverages to get your calcium. Dairy products provide important nutrients like calcium and vitamin D. You can also use the MyPlate as a guide to plan your weekly meal. You don't have to have every food group in each meal, but aim to include all the food groups throughout the day by making smart choices at meals and snacks. They have a menu template that you can go to use. Also, a lot of the calorie counters nowadays, if that's something that you're looking to do, they also will track for you the different servings as well. You can also ask a friend or family member to join you in planning and preparing meals. Cooking together can be a fun, easy, and creative activity. Speaking of cooking at home, some tips for there. Save time by preparing ingredients ahead of time. So for example, you can chop the vegetables for dinner and you can store them for exams. You can put each of the chopped vegetables in a separate container or storage bag, and you can keep them in the refrigerator until you're ready. You can also do what I do. Sometimes I'm a little lazy and I will buy pre-chopped vegetables because it is very convenient. Try healthy new ways to prepare food. So instead of frying, you can try baking, broiling, grilling, or steaming. These cooking methods often do not add extra calories. Collect and try simple, nutritious recipes. You'll find plenty of healthy and delicious recipes online in cookbooks or in magazines. I personally like to go to Pinterest. That's my go-to because the pictures are usually really nice and pretty, so it gives you a good idea of what you're going to get. You can ask friends and family members for their favorite healthy recipes. You can also search hashtags on Instagram if you're on social media, kind of what you're looking for. You can do a hashtag healthy recipe. For a specific diet, you can use that hashtag, and a lot of bloggers and social media influencers will use those to highlight their content. You can also visit the MyPlate website for new recipes, cookbooks, and resources. And also, look to add flavor in different ways with herbs, spices, or no salt seasoning blends instead of using salt, butter, or creamy sauces. Prepare extra servings of your favorite healthy dishes to eat throughout the week. And you can make leftovers a part of your plan, which can help save time. So in today's busy world, Americans eat and drink about 1/3 of their calories from foods prepared away from home. Eating out can be convenient and fun, but it can be challenging when you want to make healthy choices. In this next section, we're going to explore how to make healthy food and beverage choices when you're away from home. Meals eaten away from home are more likely to be higher in calories, sodium, and saturated fat than home-cooked meals. Here are some simple steps you can take to make healthier choices when eating out. The first step is to find out what your total daily calorie needs are. As we discussed, 2,000 calories a day is used as a general guide for nutrition advice, but your needs may be higher or lower and vary depending on your age, sex, and physical activity level. You can use, again, the FDA calculator, or you can search online calorie calculator and pick one that you like. Calorie information can be found on menus and menu boards of restaurants and other food establishments that are part of a chain of 20 or more locations. And written nutrition information is available upon request. This will help you know your options and make it easier to eat healthy when you're eating out. Once you have the calorie and nutrition information, you can make the choice that's right for you. Look for calories on menus, menu boards, self-service foods, and foods on display at certain food establishments that are part of a chain with 20 or more locations, such as chain restaurants, chain coffee shops, bakeries, ice cream shops, self-serve food locations such as buffets and salad bars, movie theaters, and amusement parks. Places you won't see calorie information include foods sold at deli counters and typically intended for further preparation, food purchased in bowls in grocery stores, such as loaves of bread in the bakery section, a bottle of liquor displayed behind a bar, food in transportation vehicles, such as food trucks, airplanes, and trains, and foods on menus in elementary, middle, and high schools. In addition to calorie information, food establishments that are part of a chain of 20 or more locations are also required to provide written nutrition information, such as saturated fat, sodium, and dietary fiber upon request. So don't hesitate to ask for more nutrition information. Or usually what I like to do is before I go, I will pull it up on my phone, or you can even pull it up on your phone if you're there as well, if that's what you prefer. Find out your calorie needs, and knowing your calorie needs is important to manage your daily food and beverage choices. If you don't want to calculate or you just want a general guide, you can use that 2,000 calories that we mentioned. And look for the calorie and nutrition information to help you make informed and healthy meal and snack choices and make the best choice for you. Compare calorie and nutrition information can help you make better decisions before you order. Side dishes can add many calories to a meal, so try to use steamed, grilled, or boiled vegetables and fruit for some lower calorie options. But with the calorie information that's there, you can make the best choice for you. Calorie information can help you decide how much to enjoy now and how much to save for later. A lot of people like to look at calories kind of like a bank account, right? So if you have this much throughout the day, if you choose to spend a little in the beginning of the day, you have more to spend at the end of the day. Asking for sauces or salad dressings on the side lets you choose how much to use. Foods typically with using words with creamy, fried, breaded, battered, or buttered are typically higher in calories than foods described as baked, roasted, steamed, grilled, or broiled. So use calorie information to help make the choice that's right for you. Calories from beverages can add up quickly, so with that calorie information, you can find lower calorie options. So again, another reflective activity. What are actions that you can start taking today to make healthier choices while eating away from home? I'm just going to take a minute to write them down or discuss them with a partner if you're watching together. Awesome. All right, if you want to share those at the end, move on. Remember, small changes add up. Making healthier choices doesn't have to mean making big changes all at once. Focusing on manageable, small changes in your shopping, cooking, and eating habits can lead to healthy and lifelong changes. And I always like to suggest whenever you're trying to make lifestyle changes, first start on focusing on things you can add versus on things you can take away, right? Because it's more fun to add things than it is to take away things. So maybe it's adding fruits and vegetables, and that's the change that you focus on first, instead of taking away a soda or taking away a food that maybe isn't the best for you that you enjoy eating. So looking to add things first before taking away. When shopping, cooking at home, or eating out, choose from the 5 food groups: vegetables, fruits, grains, especially whole grains, protein foods, and dairy. When eating out, compare calorie and nutrition information to help you make better decisions before you order. And cook with herbs and spices to add flavor to your meals without adding sugar or salt. Now let's take our last few minutes to review the main points we've covered today. The FDA's Nutrition Facts label is your daily tool for good nutrition. The new label features serving sizes in bolder fonts, updated serving sizes, calories in larger fonts, updated daily values, added sugars, changes in required nutrients with actual amounts, and a new and easier to understand footnote that better explains percent daily value. At the store, shop smart, look for the Nutrition Facts label on food and beverage packages, and we have this quick tips wallet card which we'll send out after the presentation. At home, choose foods from all 5 food groups. You can plan weekly meals, try new healthy recipes and ways to prepare food, and make time to cook and eat together. Check calorie information on menus and menu boards when purchasing, and don't hesitate to ask for additional nutrition information. And make the best choice for you. compare foods. Again, with side dishes, try to go for vegetables. Calorie information can help you decide how much to enjoy now and how much to save later. Asking for sauces or salad dressings on the side lets you choose how much to use. Foods described with words like creamy, fried, breaded, battered, or buttered are typically going to be higher than the baked, roasted, steamed, grilled, or broiled. And calories from beverages can add up. So being careful with which ones that you choose. So before we end today, are there any final questions or comments about any of the topics we covered today? If you still have questions after you leave here today, you can feel free to review the information that you'll get in that handout, and I will have my contact information actually right here.
Okay, Rachel, we do have a question from Lee who said, how do we estimate the calorie, etc. content of alcohol, beer, and wine?
So it's going to depend on what it is that you're drinking. There's a general, specifically like red wine, there's a general calorie amount that's estimated based on the amount that you're drinking. I don't know what off the top of my head. I believe I want to say about 100 to 120 calories for a 5-ounce glass. But most alcohol companies, unfortunately, do not share their nutrition information. If you are drinking a spirit or liquor, for example, like vodka, tequila, or whatnot, there are resources online that provide calories, and they can tell you what the average calorie amount is based on what a serving size is. So I believe for a shot, it's 1.5 ounces. Beer is going to be a little bit trickier because there are so many different varieties, and depending on what type of beer it is, can be a little bit different. So you can definitely search and go on Google and see if the company has provided that information. Some have, but unfortunately, especially like the craft beer ones, a lot of them don't. They just don't have the technology to decipher what that nutrition information would be. So you might just have to use what the average or estimated amount is.
Okay, and then we have a question, wait a minute, where to go, from Scott, which is plant-based meat substitutes a good choice? Information on added chemicals. What are some good spices to add for flavors with not salt and sugar?
So the first part, the plant-based meat. It depends on what your nutrition goals are. If you're looking to eat a more plant-based lifestyle and you find that you do crave meat, hamburgers, or whatnot, if eating a plant-based burger satisfies you the same way that eating a hamburger does, then I would say go for it if it truly does. But I'm a very big proponent on keeping as many foods in your diet as possible in variety, and also eating foods that satisfy you. So if eating let me put it this way, if you can eat one hamburger or one cheeseburger per week, right, and that satisfies you, but it takes, 2 plant-based burgers, or it takes eating a plant-based burger every day to get that same satisfaction, I'd rather you eat the cheeseburger, right? And the plant-based options nutritionally are not the same as meat-based options. They are a little bit higher in fat, actually. If you look at them, it's a big component of it is the fat. They do have protein, but the source of protein is usually from pea protein. And so depending on which brand you're using, the content may not be that high. And there's also other plant-based options out there for protein if you are looking for that. There's, chickpeas, there's tofu, there's other options. So I put that question back to the questionnaire and asked them, if it truly satisfies you and if you enjoy them and if you want to include them in your diet, go ahead. But if you think that it's not satisfying, if you feel like you have to eat it out of obligation, and you don't enjoy them, then I would not include them in your diet.
Rachel, it's funny, I have cardiovascular disease, and so when I looked at plant-based as an option, I found them very high in sodium, most of them, and so that kind of put it out for me. I have a question that I did at the very beginning, and the old label has the recommended daily amounts on it. And the new label, we just have the 5% and the 20%, but you have to add, what are the daily numbers we're getting to? Just the 2,000 calories? I'm kind of confused by it, I guess.
So they removed that part of the label because research doesn't support those numbers anymore.
Okay.
And it's very so much based on a person. I think the issue is that it's a very blanket, amount, and it's going to vary depending on how old you are, if you're a man or a woman, what stage you are in your life. So if you do want to know individually what your nutrient goals would be, you can search DRIs or RDIs. This will tell you what goal amount to aim for each nutrient depending on your age and your sex.
So that was that one chart that you showed us. It had the age. No, maybe.
Possibly.
I can find it at the FDA website. Yeah.
Yes, if you
So
search, you can search. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say another question that came up was, what foods are high in vitamin D, and is it effective to take a vitamin D supplement?
Vitamin D. The two main foods that come to mind are mushrooms and eggs. These are two of the top sources of vitamin D. And also, actually, the biggest source of vitamin D is sunlight. That is also the easiest way. It is safe to take a vitamin D supplement. I would just keep in mind not to go overboard. I think a lot of people like to, if it's good for you, then it's better to do more of it, right? But the problem with vitamin D compared to, a vitamin C supplement, right? Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, something that we talked about earlier. And the thing with fat-soluble vitamins is that your body can't excrete them the same way it can with a water-soluble vitamin like vitamin C. So if anyone's taken a B complex before, right, or you ever had B vitamins, or even taking just a regular multivitamin, you might have noticed that your pee kind of looks like a highlighter yellow. It's very, very bright. And what that actually is your body peeing out the water-soluble vitamins, because if you take in too much of those vitamins, your body doesn't need them, so it can just flush it out, right? Fat-soluble vitamins aren't like that. If you take too much of a fat-soluble vitamin, or your body doesn't need that fat-soluble vitamin, it will store it instead of excreting it. And the issue becomes that they're more likely to be, you can get an overdose of them, which can be a little bit dangerous. So you can search and see what your recommended amount is based on your age and your gender. It's going to be different. Usually females need a little bit more. And you can also ask next time to your doctor to get your levels tested to see if you're deficient or where you're at. But in general, try to aim for, if you're taking a regular multivitamin, it should have the amount that you need in addition to what you're getting from your diet and the sunlight. Or if you're not taking one, you could just probably take a general amount.
Guillermo has a question, and Guillermo, jump in there if I don't say this right. He said, what is the truth or misunderstanding of the light or LIGHT labels or LITE labels, light? So I'm not sure what you're asking, so you could jump in there, Guillermo.
Yeah, when we're talking about beers, for example, light beers compared to regular beers, calorie-wise, or is that really true? Is that really, a significant reduction on calories, or it's just a marketing thing?
It depends on the beer. The light beer that comes to mind for me is like a Corona. I know there's like a light version of Corona, and then there's a regular Corona, right? And actually where I see what makes it lower in calories, they are lower in calories, first of all, it's true, but the amount is not super great. And what's also going to be affected is the percentage of alcohol. You also usually notice that light beers have less alcohol than a regular beer. So that's one way that they reduce the calories, but it's also the amount of grain that is used in the beer. So yes, they are lighter in calories, but again, there's a little bit of a trade-off to it.
Scott and Brett, you've got a bit of a conversation going, so do you guys want to jump in there about the labeling of the sparkling mineral water?
Yeah, it was really, I think Scott nailed it. He was talking about, and I do this because I don't necessarily like sparkling mineral water, and I never really knew why. And then I started looking at it because it's also highly sodium content in a lot of it. So you don't really realize, when you start looking at those, I never think to look at that on the label.
But 2% is low, right? 2%. It's under the 5%.
Yeah, but I think it's based on volume as well. So that's always my confusion as well, Rachel, is when you look at some of these, you think, 2% of the total, that's not bad. But then when you look at, you look at what the serving is, and then how many, and this goes back to her original chart was, is that 2% on the serving size?
And the whole bottle, yeah.
Or the whole bottle. And the serving size is like for, you know, a 4-year-old baby or a child, not an adult male who, you know, is out here in 106-degree weather, and you're thinking, oh, I just drank the whole bottle.
Yeah. The thing with, sorry, I just realized I forgot to turn my video on. One of the things with the sparkling waters, the sodium content of those, usually the labels on sparkling waters is going to be for the whole bottle. They don't usually break it up in serving sizes for waters. So if you have a large bottle of sparkling mineral water and it says it's, you know, 2%, 5 milligrams of sodium, then it's probably going to be for the entire bottle. And I would say that's okay.
But I just looked on this one. It's Crystal Geyser, and like Brett says, it says at the top, serving per container about 2. So I have to double.
Oh, yeah.
Good
Okay,
point.
I've never seen that before. So yeah, so another reason to read nutrition labels. So yeah, so that's another thing. So you'd have to double that amount of sodium then, since there's 2 servings. And if sodium is something that you're watching, then maybe something to consider, but it's a little bit of a trade-off, right? Because it's water, and you don't need to drink water. And if drinking something like that increases your water intake, the amount of sodium in it, even then, it's still fairly small. I would say that if it helps you to increase your water intake, especially right now with how hot it is, I would say to continue to drink it.
And it's electrolyte too, sodium, right?
That could be, yeah, that could be it
summertime.
too. The electrolytes, if they added, you know, because there's a not saying it's smart water. There's another water out there that's very much an electrolyte water. Some of those purposely add sodium to it because it is an electrolyte. And if you are sweating a lot or if you're exercising a lot, you may actually need sodium because you are depleting it when you are sweating excessively. But if you're somebody that is a bit more sedentary or you're not outside in the heat, you're in the air conditioning, you may not necessarily need that extra sodium.
All right.
Other questions?
Any questions in the chat? Anybody have? We're just about
Anybody
to the
get-
hour. Yes.
Any recommendations on good spices, flavor spices?
Oh, spices. Sorry. I'm sorry. That was the part of your question. I missed it. I'm a big fan of lemon pepper seasonings. I use that a lot for both my vegetables and my chicken. That's kind of like been my go-to. There is, I think Mrs. Dash is the most famous of the salt-free seasonings. But there's a lemon pepper one out there that is pretty popular. There's a lot of, not at the grocery store, but just kind of out there in the on the internet. There's a lot of salt-free seasoning companies that have popped up. Unfortunately, none of the names are coming to my mind. I can picture them, but I don't remember their name. So if you Google salt-free seasoning, you'll probably see them pop up on the internet. And they've gotten really creative with the different flavorings, the different combinations. There's even kind of like sweet ones that you can do that don't have any sugar. And so I would say, you know, if you go to the grocery store and you're kind of bored with like the Mrs. Dash and the typical flavors that you see, maybe consider checking those out and trying their seasonings. I remember one time I got a barbecue one from one of those companies, and it was really cool, and it was salt-free. So there's a lot of different options out there now, aside from what's in the grocery store.
I've been using one since I was a teenager called Spike, and now they have a salt-free Spike. And it's kind of funny because now and it's great on vegetables, but it's funny because now my grandchildren, my daughter uses it, and so my grandchildren use it. So it's one of those seasonings that wound up getting passed down through the generations, but it's really a good one. It adds a good flavor to vegetables. So
Yeah.
it's something to look for. And they have a non-sodium one.
Yeah, I'm sure we could probably, now a good idea, we can mention, just do an Amazon search. I'm sure. Nice one.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. The name is completely, I know there's an image of like this guy on a grill. It's right there. I cannot think of the name. They have a lot of great options.
Oh, okay. How about, are there any chemicals we need to watch out? I mean, that's one reason they tell us one reason not to drink diet drinks, because of the chemicals. Are there any particular foods we need to watch for added chemicals? I guess preservatives and processed food.
Yeah, I'm a little bit different, I guess, as a dietitian. I try to tell people to not avoid things. My motto is eat food, not too much, and mostly plants, right? So if the bulk of your diet is, whole foods like chicken, fruits, and vegetables, little things like diet sodas or eating some packaged food is going to be minimal in the long term, right? As long as the majority of what you're eating is, whole foods. So if there's certain, like, for example, sucralose, which is a very common, also known as Splenda, it's a very common sweetener that you see in diet soda. If that's something that you are trying to avoid, there are stevia sweetened sodas that are out there right now. But I'm more about moderation, and I'm more about finding foods that satisfy you, and just trying to be more, I guess, not just plant-based, but food-based. So eating whole foods, if that makes sense.
It does. And I'll keep up the dark chocolate consumption.
Yes, exactly. That's what I like to hear.
Well, we've got 1 minute left. Is there any other comments? Brett, do you want to close it out?
Yeah, unless there's any, I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I always learn, as I said, when it gets to the labels, they're always so confusing for me personally, and I do a lot of sports kind of stuff, and then the heat and all these things. So yeah, I'm trying to add certain things, and it's that weird mix of, like, how do you monitor it? So this is just always very helpful. So I really appreciate the in-depth kind of look at some of this stuff, Rachel, that you always provide. So thank you.
I do like the high-low thing. That's an easy one that you can keep in your head.
Yeah, and we will
50% high. Yeah.
And this will be recorded, and it will be on the center's website. I'm not sure, I can't remember what section it is, but Guillermo might have better indication on that. But it'll be on the center's website along with previous lectures and ones we've had, and we have other ones coming up next week. The next few weeks, we will go through part of the summer. We'll look at August and see how grueling that is, and if people are really bored with even being online, depending on the heat. But with that in mind, I think.
Yeah, in case Rachel's not looking at the chat, Dan said, excellent contact and excellent presenter. Thank you. And Scott,
thank you.
Informative, great presentation. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
And
I will say there is one thing I forgot to mention very briefly when it comes to fruit and vegetables. They don't have any labels, right? I mentioned someone had a comment about shopping around the perimeter of the store, which is a good tip. If you want to know or if you want to see a nutrition label for a fruit or a vegetable, you can also Google that as well. Just type, strawberries nutrition, and it will pop up.
Oh, good to know.
Great. Fantastic. All right. With that,
all right. Thank you, everyone.
And
Wednesday hump day. I'd say go out and have fun, but I think stay inside and relax. It's too hot anyway.
It is too hot. Oh my goodness.
That is true. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.